The fees credit card companies charge retailers were the focus of a congressional hearing today. The Senate Judiciary Committee examining merchants' claims that Visa and MasterCard collude with their member banks to fix prices on the fees banks charge each other to complete consumer purchases. The fees amount to $25 billion a year and lead to higher merchant charges, according to critics. Credit card companies deny any collusion is taking place and are urging Congress to reject calls for price caps. Joining me now to debate this issue, two people who testified at today's hearing. Tim Muris, an antitrust lawyer who represents Visa. He's also a former chairman of the Federal Trade Commission. And Stephen Cannon, who represents the Merchants Payment Coalition. First of all, thanks to both of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Cannon, if you will, outline the complaint here. What is your concern?
Well, Peter, everybody who has a credit card today is all too familiar with fees. There are over-the-limit fees, there are late fees, there are all sorts of fees. Unfortunately, there's a fee that's hidden from consumers, and it's called the interchange fee, and consumers are now paying the largest fee they don't even know that they're paying.
And that fee, 1.75% in most cases?
Well, it can be there, it can be higher, but in the end, essentially it amounts to a tax that Visa and MasterCard are imposing on every consumer purchase in the United States. It doesn't matter if you have a credit card or not. Every consumer pays this tax because all of these fees obviously get incorporated in one way or the other into the cost of doing business, into the price of these goods. So every consumer in the United States is paying these fees, even if they don't have a credit card.
Mr. Muris, your response to that and this notion that the companies are colluding?
Well, Steve's clients are having the golden goose of payment cards, and they want to pay less for it. That's understandable. But what we have here are what economists call two-sided markets. This is today's Washington Post. It connects readers and advertisers. The readers pay almost nothing for it because the advertisers pay the full price. This is one of the great miracles of the 20th century. This connects consumers and merchants. And the consumer is king. The consumer is subsidized to take this. The consumer gets float, the consumer gets convenience, the consumer gets miles, the consumer gets cash back. And the merchants simply are saying, we don't want to pay for it. That's a normal kind of dispute. The alternative for merchants, if they really don't like this, is to say consumers pay less for cash, or even some big merchants don't take some of these cards.
How about that?
Well,
this is simply an effort by you all to try and lower the fees you have to pay?
Of course not. It's absolutely incorrect what Tim says, which is miles and things like that. I think if consumers understood that while they may think they're getting some benefit by using a certain credit card, at the same time they're being charged for it and they don't even know about it. And I think if every consumer in the United States suddenly figured this out, they would understand what the issue is today and why merchants and consumers as well are fighting for this. In fact, today, Peter, the Consumer Federation, Consumer Union, and U.S. PIRG, all consumer groups, wrote a letter to Senator Specter strongly endorsing the merchants' position. It's the merchants and consumers that are together on this, and they are really tired. We're all tired of paying these fees, and you as a consumer and I as a consumer should be concerned and upset about this.
What about the notion that Mr. Muris and the credit card companies suggest that this is a competitive environment, if they're going to have to keep these fees low so that they don't lose business to American Express and others?
Well, Tim, my good friend, has conveniently forgotten a lot of antitrust history here. And in fact, Visa and MasterCard are no strangers to antitrust litigation and to charges, in fact, that they violated the antitrust laws. The United States Department of Justice litigated a case against Visa and MasterCard when they, in fact, created a rule that said if you're a bank and you issue a Visa and MasterCard, you will not allow to issue an American Express or a Discover card. At the same time, several years ago, Visa and MasterCard told merchants that if you choose to take a Visa credit card, you must take a Visa debit card. And that case, in fact, was settled. It was the largest antitrust settlement in the history of the United States. So in the end...
Let's get back to this case and let Mr. Muris.
Well, sure. Look, the Department of Justice actually, before it brought that case, investigated interchange fees. There was no action. The Department of Justice a few weeks ago warned the Europeans and the rest of the world to slow down on this issue. What's happened is Steve's clients want price fixing. They want price caps. And those price caps, as in every place else in the history of the world, will lead to bad results. Australia did this. The result was consumer fees went up, their rewards went down. McDonald's and Subway recently started taking cards. You can now, get your at these quick serve restaurants, you can use payment cards. Nobody made them do it. They thought obviously it was something of value to them and something of value to their customers. The logic of the case that Mr. Cannon's clients have filed would be to put your plastic in jeopardy, because these fees it's necessary to set an interchange fee for the whole system to work. The system would collapse otherwise, and that's why, in fact, that they want these elaborate remedies, not the normal remedy for an alleged price fix.
A price cap, is that the remedy?
I am amazed that Tim would bring up Australia, because as of today, Australian consumers are charged 1/3 the amount of these fees that are charged in the United States. And by the way, MasterCard at the time predicted that if this was instituted, it would be a death spiral for the credit card industry. In point of fact, the number of credit cards are up in Australia, the amount of credit usage is up, and in fact, I noted in my testimony today an article that said, in fact, consumers have never had it so good in terms of banks fighting over their business in Australia. In fact, what's happened is that banks, instead of offering you miles or something else, they're actually competing the old-fashioned way by charging consumers less interest on their credit card purchases. If I'm a consumer, I'd much rather have a lower interest rate on my credit card than 5 or 10 extra miles sometime.
Well, you see,
I'm going to have to leave it right there. Tim Muirs and Steve Cannon, thank you both very much. Debate clearly is going to go on for some